You ever wonder what really happens when you just go silent? When you stop texting, stop checking in, and stop making them the center of your world? There's a psychological shift that happens. One that's way more powerful than any long speech or emotional outburst you could ever deliver. The moment you step back and create emotional absence, you flip the script. They start noticing the space you once filled. They feel the sudden scarcity of your energy. And trust me, nothing triggers curiosity and regret faster than the realization that you're no longer chasing. This isn't about playing games. It's about showing your worth without saying a word, letting time work in your favor. Every hour you stay silent builds tension. Every day you don't reach out plants a seed of doubt in their mind. They start wondering, did you move on? Are you done with them? Are they losing you for good? That fear, mixed with nostalgia and ego, pushes them into action. Before you know it, the person who once seemed distant starts chasing, starts overthinking, starts begging for your attention again. Going silent isn't weakness. It's the loudest statement you'll ever make. Let's talk about something most people completely underestimate: the power of emotional absence. When someone starts to pull away, when their energy shifts, when the texts get fewer and colder, our natural instinct is to do the exact opposite of what actually works. We double down. We try harder. We send that follow-up message. We overanalyze their last words. We look for little signs that maybe they're still interested. And before we know it, we're giving more and more of ourselves to someone who's giving less and less. But here's the thing. People don't feel the weight of your presence until you create your absence. That's where silence becomes your most powerful tool. Not as a game, not as punishment, but as a way of breaking the pattern and reclaiming your value. When you go quiet, when you stop showing up in all the ways you used to, it's like you're holding up a mirror to them. Suddenly, they're faced with the reality of what life feels like without you actively in it. And that's where the shift begins. See, when you're always available, when you're constantly showing interest, checking in, making an effort, they never have to wonder how you feel. They never have to ask themselves if they're losing you. They never have to feel that twinge of insecurity, that little moment of doubt that makes them think, wait, where did she go? That emotional safety net you've been providing. It's been cushioning them from ever having to step up or truly evaluate how they feel about you. The moment you pull back, something fascinating happens. They start noticing the silence. They check their phone and realize it's been a day, 2 days, maybe even longer, and there's no message from you. They notice the lack of your name popping up on their screen. That little hit of dopamine they used to get when your texts came through. No, it's not there anymore. And suddenly they're not as sure of themselves as they were before. What most people don't realize is that emotional absence triggers something far deeper than just curiosity. It creates emotional urgency. The brain doesn't like voids. When someone is used to a certain level of attention and care from you, and that suddenly disappears, their mind scrambles to fill in the gaps. Did I do something wrong? Has she moved on? Is she talking to someone else? And that's when the emotional wheels start turning. That's when regret starts creeping in. That's when memories of you, the way you made them feel, the moments you shared, start playing on repeat in their mind. But here's where most people sabotage this process. They break their silence too soon. The moment they start feeling uncomfortable, the moment they worry the other person might forget about them, they reach out, they check in, they send that, hey, just thinking of you text. And with that one little message, They undo all the psychological progress they were making. Because the second you make contact again, the mystery is gone. The emotional absence you created starts to fill back up, and the other person feels safe again. Ha! The other person starts to feel safe again, maybe even a little bored again. Silence is powerful because it creates space for someone to actually feel what life without you looks like. It gives them the chance to miss you, to realize that your energy wasn't something to take for granted. It flips the narrative from you being the one constantly wondering, do they want me? To them sitting there asking themselves, why haven't I heard from her? That subtle shift is everything. You see, people value what they have to work for. What's too easy, too available, too constant, it loses its shine. It becomes background noise. But when you step back, when you reclaim your time, your peace, and your emotional energy, you stand out. Your absence speaks louder than any words you could say. It shows strength. It shows self-respect. It shows that you're not here to convince anyone of your worth. And the beautiful thing is, in that silence, you're also giving yourself something precious. You're giving yourself space to heal, to gain clarity, and to reconnect with what you truly want. Because sometimes, when you go silent, you realize that the person you were chasing isn't even someone you really want back. But you'll never get that clarity if you stay in constant reaction mode, chasing texts, interpreting mixed signals, and overextending yourself emotionally. You can't see. So if you're in that place right now where you feel like you're losing someone, where you're tempted to send that one more text, just pause, take a breath, let them feel the absence of you, give them the gift of missing you. And more importantly, give yourself the gift of your own peace. Most people don't realize how easily they give their power away. When someone we care about starts pulling away, ignoring our messages or acting distant, our natural instinct is to chase. We want answers. We want reassurance. We want to fix it before it's too late. But in doing that, we often do the very thing that makes us even less attractive in their eyes. We start overcompensating. We double text. We replay every conversation looking for mistakes. We try to be extra nice, extra available, and overly accommodating, hoping that if we just show how much we care, they'll turn back toward us. But here's the hard truth. When someone pulls away and you start chasing, you're confirming something in their mind. They're the prize, and you're the one trying to win them back. That power dynamic becomes painfully lopsided. They feel in control. They know they have your attention, your energy, your emotional investment. And because humans crave what feels scarce and devalue what feels overly available, your increased effort actually lowers your perceived value. This is where silence becomes your most powerful tool. By going silent, you disrupt the entire script they're used to playing out. They expect you to reach out. They expect you to seek closure, to fight for their attention, to prove your worth. When you don't do that, it creates a vacuum, one they weren't prepared for. Suddenly, they're not getting the validation they thought would come. They're not seeing the reaction they were expecting. And that unsettles them more than any angry text or emotional outburst ever could. Going silent isn't about playing games. It's about reclaiming your dignity and resetting the power dynamic. It sends a very loud and clear message. I'm not chasing someone who's not choosing me. That's an incredibly attractive energy to embody. It communicates that you know your value and you're not afraid to walk away if someone isn't treating you right. It shifts the conversation from how do I get them back to do they even deserve access to me? When you stop engaging, something psychological happens. They start to wonder. They start filling in the blanks. They think, why haven't I heard from them? Have they moved on? Are they talking to someone else? Were they never as invested as I thought? The lack of communication forces them to sit with their own doubts, their own insecurities. It's human nature to want what feels uncertain and unavailable. That uncertainty creates curiosity, and curiosity pulls people back towards you. The beautiful thing about going silent is that it also gives you space to heal, to refocus, to reconnect with yourself. While they're over there wondering about you, you're over here leveling up emotionally. That gap between you becomes not just a psychological trigger for them, but also a period of genuine growth for you. You stop needing their validation to feel okay. You stop obsessing over every little thing they do or don't do. And that's when the real magic happens. Because when they do come back, and often they will, it won't be because you chase them into giving you attention. It'll be because your absence became louder than your presence ever was. They'll come back because they felt the shift in energy. They'll reach out because they realize the access they once took for granted is no longer guaranteed. And here's the most important part. When they come back, you won't be desperate for their attention anymore. You'll be in a place where you get to decide whether they still deserve a place in your life. That's the power of silence. It's not just about making someone chase you. It's about restoring your self-respect, your boundaries, and your emotional balance. Katie, my good friend, reading your book, I thought, I need to know how you reconnect with yourself, that you restore your own person and your own sense of self-worth. It's not just about making someone chase your hand or someone. It's about restoring your own person and your own self-worth. And you can access your own. So next time you're tempted to send that long text, to explain yourself, to fight for their attention, pause. Take a breath. Let the silence do the talking for you. One of the most fascinating things about human behavior is how deeply we're wired to respond to scarcity. It's something that triggers us on a psychological level without us even realizing it's happening. Think about the times you've wanted something the most. It wasn't when it was being handed to you easily on a silver platter whenever you wanted it. It was when you thought you were losing it, when it started to slip through your fingers, when its presence became uncertain. That's when your brain kicked into high gear and said, wait, I can't lose this. I need it back. That's exactly what happens when you go silent on someone who's been taking you for granted. In the absence of your words, your texts, your affection, something starts happening in their mind that you'll never see, but they feel it deeply. They start replaying conversations. They start scanning their phone, wondering if they missed your message. They find themselves checking your social media to see if you're online, if you've moved on, if you're happy without them. Scarcity creates value. It's a principle that applies to almost everything in life. Rare things are more desirable. When your attention, your time, your emotional energy becomes rare, it suddenly becomes valuable in their eyes. The same attention they once overlooked starts to feel like a drug they're going through withdrawal from. And here's the thing. They may not admit this to anyone, not even to themselves at first, but it starts with small thoughts, micro moments of anxiety, that feeling of, wait, why haven't they called me? Why haven't they sent that good morning text? Where did their energy go? In those moments, the mind loves to fill in gaps. It starts building stories that may not even be true, but they're powerful because they're driven by emotion. They might start thinking you've moved on, that you're talking to someone else, that maybe they pushed you too far this time. Even silence has a language. And to the person on the receiving end, that language says, you don't have me like you used to. What's fascinating is how quickly this can flip the dynamic. A person who was once distant, cold, or nonchalant suddenly starts feeling warm again. They start putting in effort. They begin sending those, hey, just thinking of you, text. They'll drop little fishing lines like, how have you been? Or I miss our conversations, just to see if you'll bite. And this isn't unrandom. It's a direct psychological response to the feeling of scarcity. They remember the comfort your presence gave them. They remember the validation your attention always provided. And when that's gone, it creates an emotional imbalance. The brain hates unanswered questions. It hates not knowing where it stands. So in an effort to regain equilibrium, they chase. They reach out. They test the waters to see if you're still available to them. And that's where your power lives. In the space where you used to overgive, now there's distance. In the moments where you used to double text, now there's silence. In the places where you used to explain your feelings and fight for clarity, now there's just nothing. And that nothing speaks louder than any paragraph you could write or any emotional conversation you could initiate. There's something incredibly magnetic about someone who knows when to walk away, when to pull their energy back, and when to let someone feel the consequences of their actions. It's not about playing games. It's about understanding human psychology. People place higher value on things that feel at risk of being lost. And I get it. It's hard. Going silent feels unnatural when your instinct is to reach out, to fix, to seek closure. But what you have to understand is that giving into that instinct often robs the other person of the chance to actually miss you. Silence creates room for longing. It creates space for regret to grow, for them to realize on their own what you were bringing to their life. When you stay silent, you're not just withholding words. You're giving them the gift of realization, the kind of realization that only happens when you stop showing up in the way they used to. That silence makes them confront the truth, that your presence wasn't guaranteed, that your love wasn't unconditional to the point of self-betrayal, that you're strong enough to choose yourself. And when they finally come running back, because if they cared at all, they will. It won't be because you begged for it. It'll be because they felt the cost of losing you. Going silent isn't about playing games. It's not about manipulation or making someone suffer. It's about stepping into your power and sending one of the strongest messages you can ever send without even saying a word. I know my worth, and I'm not going to settle for less. When someone pulls away from you, when they stop making an effort, when their texts become infrequent, or their calls stop coming, the natural instinct is to fill that silence, to chase, to remind them you exist, to convince them why they should want you again. It's almost like this knee-jerk emotional reaction where we panic and think, if I just show them how much I care, if I just stay visible, they'll realize they miss me. But that's rarely how it works. What actually happens in those moments is the opposite of what you want. The more you chase, the more they pull back. The more you remind them that you're there, available, and waiting for their attention, the more they start to take you for granted. They don't feel urgency. They don't feel fear of loss. They don't feel anything that makes them motivated to change their behavior. You're making it too easy for them to stay comfortable in your presence without putting in any effort. That's why silence is so powerful. It's not just the absence of words. It's the presence of self-respect. It's you showing them that you're no longer willing to participate in something one-sided. It's you saying, if you're not showing up for me, I'm going to stop showing up for you. And that's a very different energy from ignoring someone just to get a reaction. This isn't about passive aggressiveness. This is about reclaiming your dignity. When you go silent, you stop feeding the dynamic that's making you unhappy. You stop giving your time, your thoughts, your emotional energy to someone who's not reciprocating. You reclaim that energy and start giving it back to yourself. You shift from waiting for their next move to focusing on your next chapter. That shift in focus is what creates the change. People notice when your energy disappears. And they may not say it out loud right away. They may even pretend not to care in the beginning. But trust me, they notice. They notice when your name isn't popping up on their phone anymore. They notice when they post something and you're not the first one reacting to it. They notice when their day passes without a single word from you. And that silence, it starts to speak volumes. They begin to wonder where you went emotionally. When you spend time without them, when you approach their soul, they begin to wonder where you went emotionally. They start questioning if you've moved on. They become aware, maybe for the first time in a long time, that your attention was never guaranteed, that it was something they had but didn't value, and now it's gone. And here's where it gets interesting. It's not just that they miss your messages. It's that they start to miss the way your attention made them feel about themselves. They miss the validation, the affection, the sense of security they felt knowing you were there, always ready to respond, always giving them access. And now that access has been revoked. That's when people begin to shift. Some will reach out just to test the waters, to see if you'll jump back in the moment they throw you a breadcrumb. Others will come back with more genuine intent, realizing they didn't fully appreciate you until now. Either way, your silence creates space for them to reevaluate their behavior and how they feel about you. But here's the part most people miss. When they do come back, how you respond matters just as much as going silent in the first place. Because if you break that silence with anxious energy, if you jump back in with open arms and act like nothing happened, you risk undoing the progress you've made. The whole point of going silent was to reinforce your value, to show that you won't settle for inconsistency or half-hearted effort. So when they finally reach out, meet them with calm, with grace, with emotional control. Don't flood them with long messages explaining your silence. Don't overcompensate by suddenly becoming overly available again. Let them feel that the version of you they're talking to now is not the same one they took for granted. This version of you is grounded, selective, and only interested in connections that feel balanced and healthy. Sometimes silence is the loudest statement of all. In moments like this, when emotions run high and the instinct to reach out feels overwhelming, it's easy to forget one simple truth. Time is your ally. I know how tempting it is to send that text, to make that call, to break the silence just so you can get some kind of response, any response. It feels like sitting in a room where the walls are closing in on you, and the only thing that would bring relief is hearing from them or getting some sort of sign that they still care. But what you don't realize is that the silence you're holding right now is speaking louder than any words ever could. Every minute you stay silent, you're sending a powerful message. You're showing that you're not desperate for attention, that you're not sitting there waiting to be chosen. You're giving them space to feel what life is like without your constant presence. And let me tell you something. People don't truly appreciate what's always available to them. It's only when something starts to slip away that we start to panic, that we start to realize the weight of what we're losing. This is where time starts doing the work for you. The first day you go quiet, They might not notice. They'll scroll through their phone, they'll get distracted, they'll assume you're just busy. But as the hours turn into days, and those days start stacking, the silence grows louder. That gap where your good morning texts used to be, that space where your check-ins, your compliments, your emotional availability used to live, it starts to feel empty. And whether they admit it or not, they'll feel that emptiness creeping in. What's really happening underneath is a psychological shift. At first, they were comfortable. They had your attention on demand. They felt secure in knowing you were just a message away. But now, that certainty is gone. They start replaying old conversations. They look back at your photos. They wonder why you haven't reached out. They check if you've seen their stories. They look for signs that you're still emotionally tied to them. And it's that emotional tie to them. And every time they don't see your name pop up, it triggers something deeper. Uncertainty mixed with fear of loss. And here's the thing most people get wrong. They interrupt this process too soon. They can't sit with the discomfort of not knowing. They reach out before the silence has had enough time to create impact. And when you break your silence too early, you rob them of the space they need to truly miss you. You dilute the effect. You're giving them relief too soon, before they've had a chance to feel the consequences of taking you for granted. Silence works like compound interest. The longer you leave it alone, the more powerful it becomes. It builds emotional tension. It makes every future interaction feel heavier with meaning. You're not just letting time pass, you're allowing anticipation to grow.